Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about different weapons and technologies that were used during the war. So, what had happened in history before this time is important to understand what kinds of weapons and how war actually looked in terms of technology during the early 1900s, during 1914 to 1918, during World War One. So, all over the world, countries were industrializing. They were manufacturing new products, selling new products, acquiring raw materials from territories and colonies they were taking over. And this really fueled the creation of new products, new inventions, new technologies, and a lot of experimental technologies that hadn't really been used in battle before. So, the most important weapon that we see in World War One is the machine gun. Before, if you were a soldier and you wanted to take out another soldier on the other side or another army on the other side, if you ran at them as hard as you could, as bravely as you could, you likely could motivate yourself to do some damage. Um, Lots of armies had basic rifles that were slow firing, and having enough determination could be enough to change the tide of battle. Not anymore after World War One. These machine guns could kill people who are running at them very, very quickly. It shoots many, many rounds a minute. Airplanes will come out and will start experimenting on firing machine guns and dropping bombs with them. Battleships were already out, but they're going to continue to become more mature through the war. Artillery is going to fire upward in an arc, if you follow my mouse cursor, and fall down, something that had never really been seen before in battle. So it's really going to scare the troops and demoralize them as these new technologies appear out on the battlefield. Battle completely changes once World War One starts. Flamethrowers are very experimental at this point, and imagine being a soldier who's used to running at the enemy with a bayonet and a rifle, now having a man literally fire at you. Barbed wire would stop you in your tracks. Used usually for domestic use with animals on ranches, keeping them in, now being used to protect troops and stop them from advancing. Tanks we'll talk about what their use is, but they're going to be very experimental and used to stop something that happens during the war, and we'll talk about them. New types of gas come out, gas that will be used as a weapon. Chemical warfare really kind of starts here. We'll have mustard gas, chlorine gas. We'll talk about those in a little bit. And our submarines, which will be called U-boats or underwater boats for short, will play a big role in World War One and a huge role in getting the U.S. involved in the war. So the way battles usually were fought during World War One was what we called through trench warfare. So enemies would dig a trench that they could literally stand in, as you see in this picture, and usually take cover in, as you see down here, because both sides would literally surround these trenches with barbed wire and mount machine guns on them. So if you're an opposing army running towards machine guns and running towards barbed wire that will be hard to get through, it's going to be really tough to push forward and advance in battle. And both sides are going to have this problem, which is going to create a situation we'll talk about in a second. Again, here's our barbed wire that we see. Very hard to get through there. It sticks to you. It pokes you. It sticks to your clothing. Lots of people would get stuck here and just simply get shot by the enemy, as you see here. And there's our machine guns. Another look at trench warfare. Soldiers would literally sleep in here, live in here, no matter what. And trenches often went pretty deep. The artillery talked about would be towards the back. There'd be other trenches just in case they had to fall back. Trenches to sleep in, trenches to heal up in, so on and so on. And the area between both trenches is what we're going to call no man's land, because if you ran out in the no man's land to attack the enemy, which had this complete thing on their side, you were most likely going to die. Machine guns would hit you. You'd get stuck on barbed wire. Rifle fire would hit you. Artillery shells would hit you. Gas would hit you. It would be very, very dangerous. So we're going to watch a quick clip on how that kind of looked like. It's a little exaggerated, but it gets the job done. And here's just another look from an aerial point of view. Again, you run, these are all trench systems. And here's the front line with the barbed wire. And anyone who crosses would likely get killed and would have to retreat. So let's watch a quick clip.
And Détoli, a farmer who thinks of nothing but his horses, his farmyard, and his wife. For months now, we have fought the French over 100 yards of earth. They attack our trench. We attack their trench. And then to keep the score even, they will attack our trench once again.
So as we saw in that video, both sides were entrenched in their trenches, pardon the pun. They were in their trenches, and both sides tried to attack the other and were not able to. The machine guns, the barbed wire stopped them from moving up. This creates a situation which we call the a stalemate. Stalemate is when neither side can advance, neither side can move up. They're both just stuck in the same position, not able to defeat each other. So they're just going back and forth, trying to win, but neither side can't. Which is why World War One was such a bloody war. Partially because of this new technology, also because trench warfare made it that way. So if you were stuck in the war for a while, you were stuck in the trenches for a while, you might get something called trench foot, which is really disgusting. And imagine if it rained, you got in there, you were in there and you were walking around in the mud. You haven't changed your socks for weeks, months maybe. You've been in this trench for months or a year, and your feet get really bad when you don't keep them clean. And also, you have to use the restroom sometimes. And when you use the restroom, you do it in a bucket or a helmet that nobody's using from a dead soldier. And you have to put that stuff somewhere. So often, it would be thrown right back in the no man's land in between the two trenches. And then when it rained, it'd pull all that stuff into the trench, and you'd be walking around in all that fecal matter, urine, decaying bodies, blood that'll go into the trench. And it could get you really sick, and it would just destroy people's feet, as you would see. Completely disgusting. You also wouldn't brush your teeth for a while, which lots and lots of people would have trench mouth. So this could actually happen to you if you never brush your teeth. So take care of those gums. We're going to skip over this one. And with all those bodies out there, there would be lots and lots of trench rats that were running around. Big rats, big giant rats running around because there were so many bodies to consume. And the world has a way of cleaning up dead things, as you see. Big wild rats running around, and they would spread infections, influenza, rabies, that type of stuff. The mustard gas would literally burn people's skin, and it was very, very dangerous. But there's also chlorine gas that, if inhaled, your lungs would fill with liquid, which would make you feel like you're choking from the inside. Both were pretty deadly, which would lead to the invention of gas masks, as we see here. For the first time, really, gas is going to be used in war in a widespread way, and people had to figure out, how do we protect ourselves from this? So different countries would try to create contraptions to protect them, even as you see on his donkey right here. Now, tanks are interesting because tanks come out as a result of World War One. The British, I believe, wanted to find a way to protect their soldiers and move their soldiers forward. So they would create these big automobiles made of steel to help transport soldiers and and have the soldiers go behind it. And while they were inventing these things, they thought, okay, well, we've successfully created this big block of metal, of steel, that's able to move forward and absorb enemy bullets, absorb those machine gun bullets. Maybe we can attach our own guns on these things. So then they armed them with cannons, and there were so many different types of tanks that were created. And as you see here, many soldiers would use it to move up and advance behind. So this is where this experimental technology comes into play, and it matures during the war. So pretty much all tanks look the same today. All tanks look the same during World War II. This is when they were very experimental. So tanks are going to end up breaking the stalemates. They're going to end the stalemates for the most part in World War One, because what stops the stalemates? I mean, what starts stalemates? Machine guns. Do machine guns stop tanks? No. Barbed wire helps contribute to stalemates. Does barbed wire stop tanks? No. It'll go right over it. So tanks are going to finally, after a few years, be used after they come to battle, are going to push forward and allow these systems of trenches to start breaking down and allow this war to start making some progress. Okay, well, that's it for technology today. I hope you learned something. Thanks.